Hello, everyone. I'm Claire Kumar, Productivity Catalyst, and your host of NAPO Standout, the podcast to help you better your organizing and productivity business. Now, I don't know if, like you've been following the TV shows over the year that have really brought organizing and productivity solutions to life. I followed first Neat up in Canada in the early 2000s, and then I found Clean Sweep, Mission Organization, on and on and on. And I am thrilled to share with you today a conversation with Peter Walsh, who's been a host of numerous shows. Enough Already, another one. He's worked with television queens Oprah and Rachel Ray. If you're in Australia now, you will know Peter from his latest show, Space Invaders, which involves organization, renovation, and treasure hunting. I love that. I'm guessing you all know Peter, but in case you don't, I'll share a little bit more about him. He's had not only a mega successful television career, he's been a prolific writer with titles such as How to Organize Just About Everything, which is just about that thick. If you're watching the video, that's over 2 inches thick. This book, I have it. It's fantastic. It's All Too Much, an easy plan for living a richer life with less stuff. Does this clutter make my butt look fat? And Let It Go, downsizing your way to a richer, happier life. I remember fangirling when I first met Peter. I was at the Home and Houseware show, I was demonstrating a product that I was bringing to market in a booth there, and Peter walked by and I was swooning, I'll tell you. I'm still swooning, and that was 8 years ago. I'm thrilled to be here with Peter Walsh, who's joining us all the way from Melbourne, Australia. Welcome to you, Peter.
Let's swoon together, shall we?
Thank you.
I'm swooning on you too. So great to see you, Claire. How are you?
Oh, really good. Happy in the summer, happy to be in a great pause in this pandemic and where we are. And really excited to have you to talk about, I want to hear about Space Invaders, this show that you're in now, because you've had this mega career in watching these really real life reality shows about getting organized evolve. What's happening in this show and what compelled you to make it?
It's interesting. Having started with Clean Sweep in 2003, it was one of the very first shows about organizing on TV. And I think it's been an interesting journey all the way now to Space Invaders. And I'm loving Space Invaders because it very much focuses on the psychological aspect of organizing and decluttering. And it adds the components not only, as you mentioned, of renovating, but also of looking at treasures in people's homes. Because one of the interesting things that we've discovered in Australia, and it's true everywhere, is that Australians have on average about $6,500 worth of clutter at a minimum in their home. And if you stacked up every clutter, the amount of total clutter in homes in Australia, and put them into storage boxes, you would have 6 storage boxes high surrounding the entire coastline of Australia. So the amount of clutter in homes in Australia is enormous, as it is everywhere in the world. So the issue of clutter here is the same in every country in the world. Clutter's a big issue. The focus during COVID has been that more and more people are looking at decluttering their homes. And so Space Invaders has become the show that people are looking to get a little control in their spaces and to really turn their spaces back into the sanctuaries that they want and love and need. And we're showing them how to do that in really a simple way and in a focused way, and also showing them simple techniques for renovating their homes in a way that makes sense. So it's giving them really ways to declutter, ways to renovate, but also ways to take simple things and upcycle them, or how to find things that might be of value that they didn't realize, pieces of furniture, antiques, and everyday things that might be of value that they can really turn into cash from their clutter.
I love it. So there's so many benefits. Not only are they going to get this home that they're aspiring to, their renovations, I'm figuring that they look at optimizing the space to perhaps store things that they need to
Exactly.
better use it. That's amazing. And
Yeah.
then this upcycle opportunity and bringing some cash back in, there's a nice motivation to get people to think, no matter what their motivation is, to actually get on the project.
Well, and I think the other thing too is that one of the big focuses of the show is that people feel so overwhelmed by their clutter.
Mhm.
And we've decided that in every show, we really tackle this issue of start small. This is
Mhm.
how you can actually just get started, because so often it's the feeling of being overwhelmed that stops people. And the other aspect that we tackle in every show is to take a different type of clutter or a different family situation. So a single mother, a
Mhm.
migrant family who's struggling with the old world issues and moving into a new social and cultural setting, the empty nesters, the family with a lot of children. So a different cultural, social, or family setting, a different type of clutter in each setting, whether it
Mhm.
be behind closed doors clutter, technical clutter, every different type of setting you can get, so
Yeah.
that families are saying, viewers are saying, wow, you're looking at a type of clutter that I can relate to.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to capture it in one sentence so that people see that all clutter is not the same, but
Mhm.
often the underpinning things, trauma, abuse, isolation, are often the issues that really the themes that run through clutter time and again. And I think that's one of the great things that media and TV have brought to the clutter discussion, that it helps people understand that the clutter discussion is not about the stuff,
Mm.
but it's about the underlying issues. And it's not until you deal with the underlying issues that you can
Yeah.
actually help people declutter and get organized.
And that is a wonderful way to really sum up the value of what we do,
Uh-huh.
which is it's not fancy cleaning service. This is a deep life overhaul. I'll never forget the episode I saw of you with Mackenzie Phillips and that connection to trauma. So that, in that scene, there was a desk. I think it was a desk that she had,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and she had really heavy old memories attached to that item, and it was
Mm-hmm.
very, very freeing for her to be able to let that go in rather a dramatic fashion, if I recall.
It's funny that I think one of the things that as professional organizers we have often struggled with, and I remember I actually got into quite a heated discussion. I think it was at a NAPO talk I gave, where I said one of the difficulties was that people often saw us as high class cleaning experts.
Hmm.
And people took objection to that. But it's true that many people who engage us will say, well, if you could take care of this room and I'll just go and do the shopping,
Yeah.
um, that's not what we do. That we don't act as your agents to clean your space.
Hmm.
That we act as agents to help bring you through the process of helping you tell your story and understand your journey by dealing with your things, because it's your things that help you understand why it is that you can't let go of your things, because your clutter tells your story. Why, what are the memories you can't let go of? What is the trauma? um, your stuff has power. And Mackenzie Phillips' desk, where she used to sit and inject herself because of her addiction, or the books that you can't let go of because they represent a dream you had of becoming the great American author, or
Hmm.
the kids' schoolwork that you can't let go of because that's when you saw yourself as having the most important value to your children. Until you can understand that, you won't be able to let go of those things. And if the client sees you as just the person who will dust and clean and let go of those things for you, you aren't helping them to deal with those issues. So if a client sees you as just a cleaning agent, neither of you understand your role.
True enough. Absolutely. And so it's interesting. I love that you bring that up because I was always trying to upvalue the concept of organization from a strategic point of view
Mm,
and also from a coaching perspective. There's
mm, mm.
this relationship. The client's got to tell me where we want to go, but we have to work together to get there. And the knowledge that organizers and productivity coaches have is phenomenal. But it's a discovery together with the client. It's not a yes, yeah, like you said, you go shopping and don't worry when you come back.
Yeah. Well,
It's
the thing
taken
is,
care of.
the word, I love words. I love the etymology of words, and
Mhm,
organize and organic come
mhm,
from the same root. And if you think, organic means to become whole. If we want to eat more organically, we do that because it's healthier, organic, whole, human, complete.
mhm.
And that's what an organizer does. It helps people become more organic, more whole, more human, more complete, more one.
Yeah,
That's what we as organizers do. We
yeah.
help people move closer towards that wholeness.
That's
That's
a
what
real
we do.
there's a beautiful spirituality to that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I think that's what we do. In some
yeah,
ways, we are agents of the spiritual. In some ways, I honestly believe that.
yeah.
We help people open open themselves to a fuller life, and that is in many ways a spiritual journey. And I think one of the things that we do is we often give people permission that they will not give themselves. If you think about that, that's what we often do.
Yeah.
I can't let go of these of this item because my grandmother gave it to me.
Mhm.
I mean, what a horrible sense of obligation. Would someone who truly loves you force you to hold on to this ugliest of ugly piece of brown furniture? No way.
Yeah.
And if you say it like that to someone, they'll start to cry. Like, would you force your granddaughter to hold
Mhm.
on to this friggin' ugly brown armoire?
Yeah,
No, I wouldn't. Would your grandmother want? They start crying and say no. Then,
yeah.
if she was standing here, what would she say? She'd say, "You stupid girl, let it go." And somehow you give them permission that they would not give themselves. What a wonderful releasing thing that is. And
Yeah.
in some ways, as I say, often in cases, we give people permission they would not give themselves.
Yeah, I often describe that's what I do, even in the coaching around productivity. It's
Yeah,
and something as simple and profound as sleep. It's like, you know what? You can tell them your coach said to take a nap in the afternoon. And they're like,
yeah,
oh, I do need to do that. Okay, I'm going to take that
yeah,
nap.
yeah, yeah.
It's super powerful.
See,
In
and,
it,
and, that,
yeah,
and that way, and that has nothing to do with color coding shirts or organizing a filing cabinet. What are you doing? That's
yeah,
outside your province. You
yeah.
shouldn't be doing that. That is exactly what you should be doing as a productivity coach and an organizer. But that has nothing to do with alphabetizing my recipes.
I know. Or, you know what? I need to manage my time better. I need a task list. I need to know what
Mhm.
software to put my task list in. I'm like, okay, I know you come to me with that question, but let's dig deeper. Let's,
Exactly.
and so it's
Exactly.
peeling back and figuring out
And that's
what are we really looking at?
That's it. That's it. And that's the fun. And
Yeah.
that's the excitement. And that's the joy of being a professional organizer. Exactly.
Yeah, and that's why we deserve to get paid well for this. So, to keep the value of what we're doing up
Mm,
because it is life-changing spiritual work, opening people up, letting them live their best lives, and
that's
that's
exactly it.
pretty priceless.
That's
Yeah.
exactly it. I could not agree more.
So I'm thinking about this concept of treasure hunting, or
Yep.
is it
Uh-huh.
only do you only deal with letting go, or do you also look at, gosh, this piece is really important to this family and it hasn't been honored? Do you look at how you include something that somebody wants to keep in the
Got it.
show? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If there are things, one of the things for me that is a huge part of my philosophy is that if something is important, don't tell me something is important to you if it's not treated with honor and respect. So that's super important. And in my book, actually, Let It Go, a huge part of downsizing is actually finding the treasures in your home. That's a super important element in any part of downsizing. And so as a broader part of helping people deal with the clutter in their home, one of the big focuses will always be finding treasures. Now, treasures aren't necessarily items that are of high financial value. More often than not, a treasure has nothing to do with financial value. It has, items that are of high emotional and historical value to the family. So they're always items that we pull out and are always treated with honor and respect. So they might be framed or find a place, somewhere to be displayed in the home. So that's one treasure. Then the other items that might be treasures are definitely items that are of high financial, of surprising financial value. So in some cases, they might be, I think of one case where we found 4 prints, limited edition prints that were by an Indigenous artist here in Australia that were of significant financial value that the family didn't know. And so the discussion is with the family, they didn't even realize what they had. Would you like to keep these?
Mm-hmm.
Or would you like to sell them and put the money back into your home? They kept them, so we framed them and they were displayed in the house.
Gorgeous.
In another case, we found $28,000 worth of old currency, original Australian currency in clutter in the garage. $28,000. So they had that turned into new cash, and that was put into their child's university fund.
Pretty powerful stuff.
In another case, though, there was a woman who had separated her husband after 30 years of marriage, had left her, was having an affair and left her. And there was she then went on, it was very strange. She went on a buying spree, buying linen for the master bedroom, which she never slept in. She'd spent $36,000 on bed linen, which she never used. And we tallied that up. It was $36,000 worth.
Wow.
And she decided to donate all of that to the Salvation Army.
Wow.
So, yeah, so it depends. It depends on their choices. So in that case, it was a lovely act of donation and generosity to a charity. So if it's an element of treasure, of emotional treasure, we always make sure it's honored and respected in the renovation.
Yeah.
If it's financial treasure, the family have a choice whether to have it displayed as part of the renovation or to have it monetized, and they can use the money either towards the renovation or back into some way that will benefit the family, or they can choose to have that monetized and go to a charity.
I love it. Yeah, I love it because this is great storytelling too. This is like, the surprise. What have we got here?
Yeah.
There's somebody in Ontario where I live who discovered a David Bowie painting at a Salvation Army type thrift store and paid $5 for it. So these are certainly stories that make news and make money for you. Sometimes I would have kept it. I would have been blown away, but it's amazing.
Yeah, so there's always, Lucas, the treasure hunter on the show, there was one family where there was this beautiful mid-century modern light fitting, and they didn't realize, it was worth it's an original mid-century piece, and it was worth about $15,000, and the family didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And they decided they would keep it and give it another family member. So, lovely little discoveries like that, pieces of pottery or other items like that they had but didn't know what they had. So it's always a fun piece of the show.
Yeah, it's like Antique Roadshow hits the organizing, right?
It's funny because Lucas was on a show in Australia here called Aussie Pickers.
Okay.
There was a pickers show in America as well. He's a fun, hilarious guy. It's good.
Well, and the knowledge that these folks have is quite stupendous too, right? This sense of history and artisanship.
Well, it's often a counter against me too, because for me it's like, this is clutter, let's get it out of here. And for Lucas, it's like, no, what are you doing? No, it's like, Lucas, please. And so he's going through the trash, and I'm trying to just get it out. So there's often let's call it fun friction. Let's call it that. There's a
Yes,
little
I
bit
was
of
thinking
fun
artistic tension. This is this.
That's I'll use that artistic tension. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember being optioned for a show here in Canada, and the idea was to pitch design and organizing. And
Mm-hmm.
this was an idea I was looking at because the organizing is eminently practical and
Mm.
really honors how you really live.
Yeah.
And sometimes design is getting fancy and looks
Oh. Oh.
good. And that's where backless seating comes from dining tables and clear
Mm.
desks that, the cords didn't disappear. So they're going to be there.
Mm.
So the show didn't get off the ground, unfortunately, but
Well,
it was that tension.
but there's always for every show I'm on where there is because there's always a design component and an organizing component. There is always that tension,
Yeah.
always, and between the designer and the organizer. And that's part of the thing that I love. And I always acknowledge that up front with the designer. On
Yeah.
Clean Sweep, I was the organizer and there were 3 different designers. And I would acknowledge that up, particularly with new designers. And on this show, Cherie Barber, who is, a very well-known designer and home renovator here in Australia, I acknowledge that up front when I first meet them and say, look, I want you to know you and I are going to go head to head sometimes, and there's going to be friction. And they're like, no, I love working with you. It's going to be great. And it's like, no, because there's going to be times where you're going to say, I want this to be completely clear and open. And I'm going to say, we have to bring what the family are left with back into this room. And I'm going to say, I need storage on this wall. And you're going to say, no, I want this clear and beautiful and open.
Well, exactly. I remember having this discussion with my
Yeah.
in-laws who love them dearly, but they were redesigning their bathroom and they chose a sink with open shelving underneath. And I said, that's not how you live.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to look like that.
Yeah.
They went ahead with it anyway. And the thing is, they don't mind looking at all the stuff. So it totally works, but it's not going to look like the picture that you saw on Pinterest,
That's exactly it. That is exactly it. And so on all these shows on TV, there's not all of them are real. A lot of the stuff you see on TV is not real, and nothing that you see on Facebook is real.
Yeah, let's throw that in too.
And very little of what you see on Pinterest, very little is real. And so, I think, it's interesting that, just to talk about TV, I think that in the very early days of Clean Sweep, there was a lot of tension between professional organizers and TV. In the early days when I think viewers were unsophisticated, that a lot of professional organizers felt that TV shows, Clean Sweep in particular, and me specifically, were doing professional organizers a disservice because we were creating unreal expectations. And to a point, that was a very fair criticism. Clean Sweep's motto was two days, 2 rooms, $2,000. Plus there was a team of 2,000 people behind me that you didn't see on TV. But the great thing about those shows was that they created a heightened awareness of the role of professional organizers and the place of professional organizers. TV audiences have become far more sophisticated now and understand that there is a team helping. And so, I think TV shows do a great disservice. Do a great service in helping people understanding the role. Audiences are far more sophisticated. I think there are shows that still do. I think there are shows like Hoarders that I'm still not a big fan of, that create unreal expectations. But I think people understand that bathrooms are not necessarily made over in 24 hours and things like that. But I think that overall TV has helped the industry enormously.
Yeah, I think it's empowered a lot of people to think it's possible to make the changes. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, and stimulated people reaching out for help too. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, and you're
Yeah.
right. The viewers become more sophisticated as we've
Yeah.
seen
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, TV takes a lot of energy to produce. There's a lot of filming that goes in to making a good minute of TV. So,
Well,
yeah.
I think on Space Invaders, the piece that I shoot takes place over 2 days. Um, so we shoot, 2 days worth of footage, and my piece is cut down to 12 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember being on set for 10 hours in a garage. This was for a money show. And I think it ended up being a minute. And it,
Yeah.
it was like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a fascinating experience. If anybody's
Yeah.
interested, I urge you to get involved because it's really wonderful to work with teams who know what they're doing.
That's
And
it.
right? It's so fun. This is
Yeah.
part of my challenge now is I've always worked with production teams. So I'm like, where's my team here?
Yeah. But see, one of the difficulties also working in TV is that, we spoke before of tensions, how there's often a tension between designer and the organizer. Um, the difficulty with TV that people often don't realize going into it, and that's one of the things I love about Space Invaders, because as an executive producer, I have far more control over style and content now, is that TV is a visual medium. And often one of the problems is that the tension can be between story and spectacle. That often producers will want spectacle
Yeah.
and will go for spectacle over story. And if you as an organizer end up caught in that vice, you can very quickly be in all kinds of trouble with a producer, because
Yeah.
they don't care so much about story. They just want spectacle.
Yeah.
And especially if you end up with an inexperienced young producer who are going just for spectacle, then suddenly you'll find yourself under-resourced, overcommitted, with a massive mess on a short timeline, and at the mercy of an inexperienced producer. And that's where TV can really do you harm.
Yeah. That sounds like a lot of stress.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I was just asked to do something for a brand for this fall, and it's an office makeover type thing.
Yeah.
And what they were asking for was unreasonable for the budget and the
Yeah.
time. And it was just so, this is what I can do, and here's the time, and this is what I can do. So some pushback with some real sense of what it's going to ask of you in terms of time and energy and running around the city and whatever you need to do. You need to look at it really carefully and make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I love that you're in the executive producer role in this. I didn't know
Yeah.
that. And that's fantastic because you do get this voice to shape story and spectacle. So I'm going to ask you the interesting question then is, how are you balancing it out when you're creating this show? How do you play with those two?
A lot of the show was, my partner and I basically were involved in the concept right at the start. So being involved right from the get-go in terms of working on the concept gives you an opportunity to basically be involved in basically working up the concept and then working with a production company to bring it to fruition. So it basically means that you have a role in basically putting the concept together and then seeing it to fruition. So right from the very start, you have a chance at every step of the way to okaying the concept's kind of development. So it just means that you get to sign off on every step of it. So it just means that you then are kind of the gatekeeper to make sure that things don't go off the rails at every stage. And obviously you have to kind of give and compromise on different things, but on the key things that you want in terms of the execution of the idea, in terms of the approval of families, in terms of the size of the jobs, in terms of the days of shoots, in terms of the choice of crews and so on. You have a say in those. And especially here where the production company as well, and you get to work with people who you've worked with before and trust, suddenly there's a whole kind of family atmosphere and exchanges with people who you know you can rely on. Then you're very involved in the whole decision-making process. So that makes a huge difference in terms of the end product. And you can see that in the way the film, in the way that the show is cut and put together and aired. So it does reflect the values that you have as a professional organizer, and the people who are working with you share the same set of values. So I think the show's one of the best I've made. We've shot 10 episodes. It's enjoying significant success here. They've also sold it into a couple of territories as well. One of the funny reactions they've gotten back from overseas is that the production companies they've showed it to have said, yeah, but how long has it taken to do the going through the sort, going through all of the family stuff after they've taken it out of the home and put it into the other space, but how many days has it taken to do that? And the producers have said, well, 2 days. You see that on camera, and the people they're selling it to have said, yeah, but how long does that really take? And they've said 2 days. Yeah, but really, how long is that?
Wow.
No, 2 days. So they've been kind of astounded the amount. We go through a massive amount of stuff in 2 days. So we go through a lot of stuff in 2 days. But that's 20 years of experience.
I was going to say, this is the culmination of all of this long, rich career and learning as you go. You can't, bottling that up, that's magic. To infuse into a show now. I tried to find Space Invaders, but because it's not in Canada, I can't see it. So I was
people who followed the stuff I've done in North America are really frustrated by the fact that you can't see it. And I'm getting emails and stuff on Facebook every day from people who are like, what? Like, this is not fair.
Yeah, it's tough, but in time, let's cross fingers that it makes its way over here and that we'll be able to watch it. Yeah, for sure. So I want to ask you one last question. Really, is do you have a fave story from all of your television experience? Is there something that stands out that wow, that was just a really memorable experience for whatever reason, spectacles, story, whatever part of it?
I can tell you an Oprah story. I can do a name drop story. I'll do a name drop story because it was and I can tell you this story because she wrote about it herself. And this is because normally I wouldn't talk about Oprah, but I'll tell you a name drop story. I was at an event where Oprah was, and Oprah was at an event where I was.
Let's reframe this. Who's telling the story?
And she was at a time where she was renovating her house. And I tell this story because it just illustrates, she's a really lovely person. And one of the questions I'm most asked, even to this day, is what's Oprah like? And I always say she's exactly like you would want her to be. And we were chatting about something, and she was renovating her house at the time. And one of the things, if you read anything that Oprah writes in her magazine, one of the things that she most loves to do is to have long, luxurious baths. It's her thing. I don't know why, but it's her thing. And when she first got a lot of money, she had made for herself, carved for herself, out of one huge piece of onyx, a bath. Wow. God knows how much it must have cost. It must have cost, God knows, anyway. And we were chatting, and she said she's having her home redone, and she has this onyx bath, and she just can't get rid of it. And her designers and the architect all say it doesn't belong in the new house, and she should just get rid of it. And she wrote about this story, as I say, so I could tell the story. And she said, she realizes it doesn't belong in the new house and she should get rid of it, but she just can't get rid of it. And I said to her, so when you look at this onyx bath, what do you see? Like, what does it represent to you? And she stopped dead in her tracks and said, oh, well, it just represents it. Just, I look at that bath and I see just, it was the first complete splurge purchase I ever made. And it just represents all my success and, the fact that I came from absolute poverty. And that was the first thing I ever just didn't think about the money. And I just bought that. And when I look at it, I see all my success. And I said, well, there you are. That's why you can't get rid of it, because if you let it go, maybe you think all your success will go too. And she kind of looked a bit shocked and shaken. And we finished the conversation. And about a month later, in Oprah Magazine, This Is What I Know, this story was written, and how she'd had this conversation with me, and she went home and had the bath taken out of the house because she realized that it wasn't about the bath. It was about what the bath represented. And it really made me realize that she is no different from many of us, that the stuff we own always has power. And it's not till we understand the power of the stuff that really we can make kind of an informed decision about why we can or can't hold on to things. And, we're all exactly the same. The stuff we own has power. And it's not till we understand the power that we really understand ourselves. And, it is a name droppy story, but it just illustrates that we're all exactly the same.
It illustrates that, and it illustrates the power of a professional organizer who's really sensitive and in tune with the client to be able to say brave things and to notice, right? So yeah, it's a beautiful story. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for sharing this time with me and all of the people who are going to be diving into this episode and just learning. And everybody, I do want to say you're going to want to check out our YouTube clip, because we're going to come back for another question, and that'll just be on the YouTube platform. But right now, I do want to just thank you so much for the people that are listening right now. For those of you, if you're listening, I always invite you to check out the other podcast episodes, napopodcast.com. There's so much learning and riveting conversation there. And as you continue your journey, stay safe, be kind, and enjoy that journey. Okay, so Peter, I promised everybody one more question, and thank you so much for entertaining this. I'm sure there are a lot of minds out there who are thinking, gosh, that sounds like so much fun. I want to be on television. What can I do to be on there? This is magical. What should I do?
Don't do it. Look, it is fun. It is fun. But the thing is, people don't realize what's involved. I mean, it is a huge amount of fun, but it is also a massive amount of work. Like, it's a massive amount of work. And the truth is, and people do not believe me when I tell them, there is no money in television. And that's the bottom line. If you're doing it because you think it's going to make you rich, there is no money in television, honestly. The money you get for being on TV is minor. The truth is that TV is a great way to help you, in the parlance of marketing, to build a brand. But even that has changed so much, because the truth also is, and this is funny from someone who, has made his career on TV, nobody watches TV anymore. That's part of the problem also, that if you look at the stats in the United States, for example, the number of people watching TV is dropping more than 10% year over year. The place that people go now is online. Everyone's watching, not even Facebook anymore, Instagram. Now it's TikTok. People are migrating, hugely online. So I think, one, you need a mix. So if you're looking at building a brand, you need, a pretty substantial mix. Someone who's like myself, most of my audience is on Facebook. Most of my audience does still watch TV. My audience is my demographic is basically middle-aged female. Those people are still on largely on Facebook. do watch TV, so that's why I still have a pretty strong presence on TV and on Facebook. If you're after a younger audience, it depends on your demographic. Have a mix on social media. Look at where you want to go. If you want to, if you want to build a brand. Books, not so much. I've had a huge presence, in the publication world. I'm not so much interested there anymore because people don't read books anymore. I am looking at a new publication venture, but that's not traditional. I'm exploring that at the moment. I don't want to say much about that. So it depends on, where you want to put your energy. TV, I wouldn't hugely encourage someone, but for the fun and the experience, what I would say is, particularly in the United States or Canada, see if you can book yourself into, maybe for free even, to a local broadcasting station to offer, organizing tips on a morning show or something like that. Start there. Don't expect to get paid. Don't expect a lot of money. Do expect apps to build your business. What's your opinion on that? Is your experience different?
No, it is not. And what's interesting is I can say I built a brand before I built a business.
Yeah. Okay.
And so people thought there's a lot behind this. This is fantastic and this is successful. But it was like, wait a minute, I'm still working at getting clients. I'm still working at making monetizing this. I mean, I remember, many years ago being on lifestyle television shows for about 5 years straight. And it would be about 3 days work. And when I totaled I did get paid for it. It was minimum wage work that I was getting paid. And I thought that is not a long-term plan,
No.
right? It was fun. It was learning, and it did boost my credibility. When a TV station calls you an expert, okay, now you're an expert. So that is great. And because I like the medium, I like live interaction. This is why I love the podcast so much. I decided to monetize it by becoming a spokesperson for brands. And even in that model now, I'm still doing television and I'm watching the model shift. So we'll see how much longer I can keep doing it. I'm looking at some of our other members like Leslie Hatch Gale, who did an episode on TikTok, and I'm thinking, she's, there are other platforms that are being monetized as well, where you can become a thought leader. And I would definitely look at those and look at what you love to create would be my suggestion. And then you can take off, I think.
And also, times change and platforms change and situations change. I mean, at the moment also, with COVID, nothing that's worked before is working now too. So try everything. Don't put all your eggs in any one basket. Good luck. That would be my advice.
That is awesome advice. And on that note, I'm going to say a deep thanks again for joining us and sharing your wisdoms, insights, and stories. So thanks so much, Peter.
Always a pleasure. Love you, Claire. Take care. Bye-bye.
Love you too. Ciao.